thank you for taking the time out today to have a chat, Magnus. Really appreciate that from your busy schedule. I think you're traveling in between countries at the moment, and appreciate you fitting me in for this chat. I think there's congratulations in order. I believe Exakta Photo has sort of reached quite a good status in Europe, and if I hear correctly, it has reached the status of the largest photography company in Europe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think probably. Even though that turnover-wise, I don't think that's the main thing for us. But we reached a reasonable size now. So and we are on the path of growing the business further. So with that being said, we have an interesting position and look forward to the future and growing it even further. So yeah.
Was it something around the 4 million children you photograph every year?
This year we will finish the year end in December by somewhere between 4 to 4.5 million heads. Yeah.
Okay.
But we of course we don't do that in Sweden because we don't have that amount of students. But we operate in 4 different markets as of now.
Okay, and what were those markets?
Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and UK.
Okay, fantastic. And Exakta Photo has gone through a huge transformation in the last few years, and maybe you could be more precise than few years, but what really prompted the transformation?
I think actually it started like over 15 years ago when there was a big transformation in the Nordics. Firstly, in Sweden, where we then were located and did only have a business in Sweden. At that point, the Swedish market was quite fragmented. But the real challenge for us was a shift in the market, where we went from sending every picture direct home to the end customer, to the parents, where they actually received the package and chose from the table and then send the pictures back. So we went from from old processing to move everything online. That was the big change, and that was first of all driven from the market, from the schools, because they didn't want us to send everything to the parents. So it was consumer driven, and we were the first one in line to do that change. But at some point we did realize, okay, if we don't do this transition now, we will be out of business in a couple of years. So when we took that step, of course, it was fear connected to that, but in the end of the day, we didn't really have the possibility to choose from this. So either we die or we succeed with the transformation. So that were the start for us, I think. We went from we did really need to dig in and move from slow processing to extreme efficiency in order for us to actually make that change.
Did you have your own, if I remember correctly, you had your own developers in-house? Is that correct?
Yeah. At that point, we had our own in-house IT department who developed all the processing from the internal CRM to the web shop. And we did have that internally up until 2019, where we actually made a change and moved to NetLife instead. Because from my point of view, I think it's a big risk to have that be depending on one or two persons. If somebody, I wouldn't say die, but if they quit their job or they go into maternity leave or something like that, then we are very vulnerable in how we are structured. So I think one of my job is to risk minimize the setup, and for us that did make sense to make that move. And at that point we already had done the hard work in trying to streamline and bring efficiency into our workflow. So when we did face that type of challenge, it was actually a no-brainer for us to make that transition.
It's interesting you brought the technology there. I speak to a lot of companies that are of good size, not quite to the 4 million, but they've over time they've developed their own software and platform. And just sort of in the last couple of years, I hear more and more cases of, oh yeah, we're trying to decide upon, do we develop and keep developing, or do we get an off-the-shelf kind of situation with that? And I think what I've heard and from what I understand is these companies have been developing over 15 years, but their base code is so old, it's not keeping up with security standards.
100%, and I do agree. And I do also think I met, as you know, quite a few companies worldwide, and I do think that this, even though everybody says they have the best system in place and so on and so forth, when they calculate on it, I'm very sure that they don't do it by the right measurements, because in the end of the day, I think our setup as of today is fantastic. We can be demanding our supplier of this software instead, and we don't need to recruit any people if we need to have some features into the system. So for us, and also looking at downtime, if you have your own system and you constantly need to look to efficiency in having uptime for the website, one day could be crucial with that amount of students running through the system. So there are many aspects of it that for me makes it a no-brainer to move to off the shelf. In our case, of course, NetLife.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had a conversation with some companies over the last years in terms of having their own, and they thought they would be in control of their own destiny, and they can do this and do that development and so on. But it turned out in the end there was no change from $1 million, we'll say, of development, and yet the problems they had were good people leaving the company because the platform wasn't working, and schools being lost because of things weren't working. Did you run into any of that yourself?
Yeah, we did previously. Not previously, but back in the days, we did lose customers because we weren't aligned with expectation from the end customer. Firstly, that made our transition much more easy when we went online. But the last couple of years, nobody left us because we don't have the software in place or the features in place. So of course we can also lose customers, but not not due to that reason, so to say.
Not due to technology. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So we've had a number of conversations, and I think the last one was in the US at SPAC about this, and the difference between growing a business and truly scaling one, where growth adds net profit and scale as a multiplier. Was that distinction something that you were looking to address in the company's transformation in the last years?
Yeah, 100%. I think first of all, you of course you need to have your company in a place where you have the right people, the right processes in place. But when you do that, then despite organic growth or acquiring or growing the business, you will get an effect on that one, because then you can add more volume into the already existing workflow. So that of course will have a good impact on your net profit, of course. And this is why we are able to grow, because we do have a playbook and we do have the system in place. We do have the workflow where we want it to be. With that being said, of course, it's a constant. We need to constant review where we are and how we do it. We chase seconds throughout the workflow in order for us to be even more efficient. But so it's a never-ending story in order for us to actually be on top. But of course, the reason we now can have that growth is because we have the house in order. We have the workflow where we want it to be. But even that, we will need to put a lot of effort into to make it even better for the future. So this is a constant reviewing from our side, where we like to develop. We like to be in constant change. I know many companies are quite fear-driven because they are afraid of making changes, because they are afraid of that affecting their net profit or their result in the end. But at the same time, from my perspective, I think if we don't make changes, we will be stuck with the same result as we had last year.
Yeah.
And when those type of changes from the market comes, in the end, you will slowly take the breath out of the company, and you won't. So basically, I think change is a positive thing.
I see. Obviously, globally, companies have unfortunately gone under. Nobody wants to see a school photo company go under. And it's sort of taking it back to that growth stage where a company for 30, 40 years have grown. They've added more schools, but they've also added all the workforce on top of that and grown and haven't looked at their systems behind that. And we're seeing that because in economics, wages are growing and it can't be sustained throughout the company. And, I don't know, is that your sort of what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I think for me that's the biggest difference between growing and scaling. Of course, we do have competitors that are extremely good at what they do, but they are structured and they have processes in place where they actually can't grow because the processes and the system are so, I wouldn't, maybe not clunky, but for us they are really not a competitor, because even if they succeed in growing the business organically by 20-30%, they due to their setup, they will fail towards the schools and towards the parents because they can't keep up with what they promised earlier. So I
unless
think
they put more bodies onto it, and there goes your cost,
exactly.
And there goes your profit.
So they, even though they grow the order status, but they also grow in number of people. And I think for me, the secret source of actually growing the business is to do that by not bringing more staff in. You need to have the system and the workflow in place, so you can bring more student in the system, but without growing the number of staff.
Body count. Yeah. And that's the big distinction. I'd love companies to really research themselves to go, have we grown or have we scaled? And there's plenty of help and advice to get out there just by having a chat with someone, I think.
100%. And also I think you need to have the right mindset in the company as well. The right people in place that actually want to make changes. With that being said, I'm not pushing for changes just for the changes' sake, so to say. Of course, you need to have a plan in place and so on and so forth.